Hello, I'm KKing, an English instructor at Las Positas and Diablo Valley College. And I'd like to start today by talking about my interest in going global. If your college is anything like ours, your master plan has something in it about honoring student diversity and preparing students for a global workforce. We're not just sending students off to live, work, and die in their hometowns, but to live and work in an increasingly globalized and technology-centered world. It will take all of us to dig into that work across disciplines, and it makes sense to integrate internationalizing curriculum with digital resources. So, what about that? I went to school when education looked like this. A professor with lots of knowledge wrote down his knowledge on a transparency. Students sat in the audience and attempted to copy down those notes, absorb that knowledge, and maybe not fall asleep. And while I, being an introvert, actually love that style, the knowledge that stayed with me and helped me in my career came from professors who made students be active participants in class. This makes sense in 2018 more than ever. Students have access to an overload of information in their pockets. My 4-year-old knows how to ask Siri when he wants to know something. As educators now, we're not so much gatekeepers of knowledge as gatekeepers to the world. How can we teach our students to understand the mounds of information around them, to expand their perspectives on what it means to live and work on this hyper-connected and quickly changing planet? So enter Lacuna. I was interested in the way social digital annotation could make students more active participants in the classroom, and the way it mimics the collaborative work students are likely to be doing in their future careers. Students are adept at having textual relationships with each other online. Countless texts, snaps, likes, and tweets happen in any given hour. Lacuna creates a space where students can elevate that experience to include academic discourse. With that in mind, I open up my semester with a tutorial about how to use Lacuna that doubles as a getting to know you activity. You heard Daniel and Julia talk about some of Lacuna's features, and this just walks students through using those features and becoming familiar with each other. Students are quick to take to the software. 30 minutes into my class, I had 270 annotations on this one-page document. And as a teacher, I get a glimpse into students' personalities in their natural habitat, the internet. So here's a basic outline of my course. We start with direct modeled instruction, move on to collaborative project-based learning, and then end with a crowdsourced but independently written research paper. Let me dive into that. We start with an overarching concept, American ideals and idiosyncrasies. We talk about that old Puritan adage that America is a city upon a hill that really has it all figured out and guides the rest of the world with our shining light. Then I probably ruin that for students and we look at the idiosyncrasies of America, or where America is failing to live up to its ideals and maybe not so much of a global leader. For example, take gender. Earlier in the semester, using Slido, a live polling app that works great in the classroom, I asked students what countries get gender equality right. Here are their pretty predictable answers: very Western, very European. Many are rather shocked to see what the top countries actually are. Yes, Iceland, Norway, Finland, but also Rwanda, Nicaragua, Slovenia. Many are even more surprised to see the US way down here at the bottom, somewhere around 50. So, in the first part of the semester, my classes look like this. I introduce a theme like gender, then post a series of essays on Lacuna, which students read and annotate outside of class. It works well to intentionally pair readings here. For example, my students read Michael Kimmel's Bros Before Hoes, which looks at the construction of masculinity in North America. Basically, don't show any emotion ever. And the response in class looks like this. There are some protests that it really shouldn't be this way. And a big chorus of, yep, he nailed it. That's just how it is, testosterone. Now on Lacuna, I can pair a reading. This one is from the New York Times and looks at masculinity in Japan, where you can see students are surprised to find guys can care about things like fashion or have emotional lives without having to give up their man card. And just like that, students expand their understanding of gender as not only biological, but also cultural. The great thing about seeing these annotations online is that students really give you a glimpse into their mind. I joked in my commercial about being the thought police, but there really is a way that many of students' cultural assumptions are laid bare on Lacuna. And then we get to unpack that. Here I had a male student condescendingly explain the gender wage gap to Rebecca Solnit in her essay about mansplaining, which was actually a fun, teachable moment. Having students help each other process a reading outside of class also opens up lecture time for international perspectives that really broaden student perspectives. When we get into race, reading The Case for Reparations, it's how can looking at the relationship between Germany and Israel post-World War II offer some insight into race relations in the United States. And I'll be passing out a handout with my class structure and paired readings that worked well at the end here. But for now, using Lacuna really lets you hear from the diverse international voices present in California classes. Here's a tiny snapshot of voices we have that are just waiting to share insights.
A language other than English at home? Does anyone want to raise their hand? Yeah? What language do you speak?
Cantonese.
Cantonese? Nice. Okay. What about Spanish? Nice. You?
I speak Dutch.
Dutch? Nice. Okay, cool. All right.
Lacuna, I think, also makes discussion better because it allows students to get comfortable sharing their insights and understandings with each other before they even get to class. And honestly, part of why discussion rates are better is because of the Big Brother-esque feature on Lacuna. You can see whether your students read or not using the annotations dashboard, and they know it. But they like it. Let me pause and give you a glimpse at this from the student perspective. Here are a couple of my students' thoughts.
All right, guys, what do you guys think of Lacuna?
I would say Lacuna has been extremely helpful this year as a resource, just because it's helped me understand text better by letting me annotate with other classmates all at the same time. You can see everyone else's annotations, which kind of helps sometimes when I'm stuck on someone. I can see someone else's understanding or perspective, and that helps me understand like the article or piece we're reading better. So that was probably my favorite part of Lacuna this year.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, and backing off of what Joey said, I think Lacuna is great because, one, you can talk to your teacher and communicate with whoever they are through Lacuna, and you can speak to your classmates and see what they're saying. And there's also many texts to annotate, and it's just a good resource overall.
Cool, thanks.
So essentially in the first part of the semester, I'm modeling what I expect students to do mid-semester because now it's their turn. I have students sign up to read texts in small groups, all related to class themes. You can see some here. And then I flip the script. Their group has to teach an essay or chapter to the class. They use Lacuna to post the chapter or essay they want to share with the class and guide their peers through the reading, following up with slides and a dynamic presentation. Now it's their turn to add in an international focus, something they really enjoy researching. And results are amazing. Here's a screenshot of the types of presentations I was getting. Zoomed in here, you can see them adding in that international perspective themselves. And here's a brave student who said I could show a clip of his presentation.
Buried underneath piles of sand and like literally buried alive. And that way, it's also been called the train of death. But a lot of immigrants like to look at the train in a more positive light. They refer to it as the Pilgrim's Train. They kind of gives them a sense of morale when they have a bunch of other immigrants together. Just that one little piece to hold on to make the journey, to hold on to that piece of hope to make it a little bit better. Enrique likes to call it the Iron Horse because he likes to think of, the train as a horse that's carrying him to finally see his mother. That's kind of his little piece. And then one connection to the Lacuna passage we posted, they talk about the train, calling it the train that devours. And I think not only it devours people's bodies, in terms of there's been decapitations on the Lacuna passage. It talks about someone's legs got cut under it. Not only were they cut off, but his legs were severely burned from the tracks. I think it devours, entire family situations because.
So thank you to my student for that. At the end of the day, I can't let students escape without a traditional paper. But the great thing about this class structure is we've now crowdsourced the research. Students choose one of our class themes to write about, and I feel like the digital resources and international discourse set students up to think and write in more complex ways. Here's a thesis statement from a student. Although Americans generally believe gender equality exists in this country, the wage gap, the gap in government representation, and glass ceilings in many industries are evidence that in reality all men are not created equal. Through comparison with other countries, it becomes apparent that the cultural construction of masculinity and femininity in America contributes to gender inequality. Although America has come a long way, more changes are necessary to achieve our ideals. Again, students overwhelmingly love the digital resources and really seem to appreciate the international elements in their coursework. You'll be hearing much more from my colleagues today, but I'll close with some final student thoughts.
Okay, so I tried to add in some international elements to our curriculum this semester. What was that like for you as a student?
I think the first thing that came to mind was in the beginning of the semester we had an article on good culture of gender roles in another country, and I think that started a conversation on these issues that we talk about in this classroom being a international phenomenon. That kind of led the students to start to, be curious about how these issues that we talk about plays out in different places in the world. And I think that was very refreshing because in other classes, it tends to be that, whatever we're learning, it stays here in the, at most, the local level. To start to do that, it would make their contents more interesting.
Yeah.
Right? To know that what we're learning is not just applicable in San Ramon, California, but rather this is something that can apply to the rest of the world.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And thank you all for being here and listening. And please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me with any questions, or if you'd like to share or adapt any of the resources you've seen here today. I look forward to collaborating with you.